Today, my guest is Ben McLellan, co-founder of Ethical Scaling, a consultancy to help seven-figure coaches and agencies scale profitably without sacrificing integrity or client experience.
I often see owners hit the right offer, making sales. They're not taking the time to slow down and go, okay, do we really have the infrastructure to handle scaling? If you're enrolling 80 clients a month and only 20 of them are crushing it, that means you have like a 25% success rate. That kind of sucks. When I hit 10K in my Facebook ads agency, up until that point, that 10K was like, how could I ever make 10K? So to be able to expose more people to who they can become, I think that's the real gift of the high ticket space.
Welcome to the Remote Sales Podcast, the podcast to help you crush a high-earning career in remote sales. I'm Kris, Cochrane, founder of Remote Sales Institute, and every week we interview closers, setters, business owners. We unlock the secrets to performing at a high level in remote sales. Today, my guest is Ben McLellan, co-founder of Ethical Scaling, a consultancy to help seven-figure coaches and agencies scale profitably without sacrificing integrity or client experience. After running a successful fitness studio, Ben joined the team at Traffic and Funnels, where him and I first met many years ago, where he was my client success manager. And eventually he became the client success director and guided over 1,000 entrepreneurs to success. But when things started pulling him away from his values and family, he knew something had to change. That led to the creation of Ethical Scaling, which ultimately helps businesses make sure they don't just focus on sales and marketing, but they focus on client experience. He's also the author of a book, The Customer Success Manifesto. Ben, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, man. I appreciate you having me.
And mate, for someone who might be new to this space, could you explain a bit about what you do at Ethical Scaling?
Yeah, sure. So, in the high ticket space, that's typically how I refer to our vertical. There is a lot of emphasis on sales and marketing, and rightfully so. You can't have a business without marketing and sales that's effective, right? It tends to be younger owners. If you look at the spectrum of business owners, across the world, I think the high ticket space skews younger. And so I think a lot of owners, it's not that they don't care about clients, but they don't truly know how to take care of clients. So when I saw that, after being part of Traffic and Funnels and working with, I didn't one-on-one work with 1,000 clients, but saw 1,000 clients come through that program. I worked with hundreds of them myself. I knew that there was opportunity in the space for someone to focus on client experience. And that's really what we do. From software to client journey to secondary offers to training the team on the psychology of leading clients. That's really what we do as a company.
And you guys have been in business now, is it 7 years?
So I started the business myself in early 2020, but we launched this actual offer. We call it Raving Fan Formula in July of 2020. And that's when Jay, who's my business partner, joined up with me too.
Awesome. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see business owners make who are scaling, looking to scale, that causes them to need a service like yourself?
Yeah. So, I think as humans, right, our tendency is to move towards more as fast as we can, especially when maybe we're in our younger years. So I often see, when owners hit the right offer with the right message and they're, making sales, they're not taking the time to slow down and go, okay, do we really have the infrastructure to handle scaling? And not only that, but they don't truly understand what scaling is, right? So growth is when your business gets bigger, but you don't reach scale until you're doing the same or less input with more output. It's a really key differentiator. So, you run ads, you've seen people run ads, and what they'll do is they'll scale up ad spend, right? And oftentimes you can get a bigger return, but sometimes you hit a ceiling, and you will hit a ceiling at some point, right? But the way to move past that ceiling is to figure out, okay, beyond just ad spend increasing, how can we actually grow this business and grow it sustainably? Referrals, back-end offers, right? All of those things that come from creating a great client experience are how you actually reach scale. It's not just on front-end acquisition.
And it's one of those things where it actually creates more sales. It makes marketing and sales so much easier if you've got a better client experience, and which then leads to reviews, testimonials, client success. And I think back to when I started in high ticket, where you and I first met. I was a closer. I'd just gotten out of a fitness business like yourself, and was sort of dusting myself off after almost going bankrupt, and I had found the high ticket space, and I was starting to look at building a online coaching company for fitness professionals. And at the time, I was working with one of my good friends, Ben, and he just started a company called the Buyer's Agent Institute. And I was kind of I jumped into traffic and funnels because I wanted to get this off the ground. But what I learned from Ben and what we've really taken into Remote Sales Institute, and then now working with you as a client, it is just the power of client success and how your online reputation, it really impacts performance on the front end. And if you start to get a reduced online reputation, if you're getting poor reviews, if people aren't reviewing you, if they're leaving bad reviews, it just makes sales and marketing so much more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. And here's the thing, I can see you guys and how you're operating. Yes, you want to grow the business and reach that point of scale, but you're really committed to having the systems and the team in place in order to do that in a sustainable way. So it's really smart. It's not the easiest thing to do because oftentimes you see the opportunity in the market and you're like, oh, I want to capture market share. And it's like totally fair. But if you do that before you're ready, you're going to ride, the roller coaster. And I don't think it's necessary,
I think the industry gets a name as well. If I run ads which promise people to change their lives, make more money, have more time, have more freedom, which is what a career in high ticket sales is, and that's what it gave me. That's what we've been able to help hundreds of people achieve. But still, what it creates is a lot of skepticism, especially on the front end, sort of in Facebook world where people are commenting on the ads. And I think the word scam often comes up. And my definition of a scam, really, there's not many high-ticket business owners that are out there to scam people. There's almost no one sets out to scam people like a crypto rug pull. But I believe what tends to happen is they overpromise on the front end with marketing, and then they can underdeliver because it's very easy to make big claims, and they get people bought in. It's very hard to actually deliver on those claims.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too. I think a lot of owners don't understand the diffusion of innovation as it pertains to their offer. And what I mean is, you've got your innovators, your early adopters, your early majority. Those are going to be the easiest clients in the world to serve because they're usually doers. All you need to give them is like a clear plan and a little bit of support, and they tend to crush it. And so if you have, 20, 30, 50 of those clients right off the bat, you're like, oh, we can scale this offer. Look at it. Everyone's getting amazing results. But what you don't think about, most owners, just because they don't understand this piece, is that you're going to start getting the late majority and the laggards. And if you don't have the right type of client experience, systems, team in place, you will be frustrated, your brand will suffer, people will start to refund and charge back, and you'll be left wondering, like, what happened? In the early days, everyone was crushing it, but that's what's happening. As you broaden out into your market, the type of client is very different. It doesn't mean they're a bad client necessarily. They're just not as easy to serve because they tend to worry more. Maybe they've been burnt more. They're just different people. So your team and your systems have to be built to handle that diffusion of innovation.
A lot of our listeners, they're very interested in making a career switch and getting into a remote role for many reasons: earning, lifestyle, freedom, flexibility. I'd love to explore your transition into the high ticket space, coming from fitness and the gym industry to then getting into and working for a remote business, traffic and funnels, and how was that journey for you?
Yeah, it's always crazy, right, to look back at the twists and turns that your journey takes, and the one person you met here or there that like really just could change your trajectory, right? So I won't make this too long, but I moved to Massachusetts from Rhode Island, 100 years ago. I was in my late 20s with the intention of going to grad school for jazz studies. I was a drummer, percussionist, and I was in the orientation for that school, and I like got really nauseous, and I was like, this isn't the right thing. I have to get out of this. I stood up, walked to the registrar's office, withdrew, and then, I called my sister on the way out the door. I'm like, hey, I just quit school. Like, what do I do? And she said, what about personal training? And so I got Boston Sports Club to hire me. They were a franchise. They probably still are, but they were a franchise. And, the manager was like, look, I don't usually hire people without experience, but there's something about you. I want to give you a chance, and that's all I needed. I just needed the door to be cracked open. So started personal training. Started getting into yoga. Then I became a personal trainer at a yoga studio. And then I started teaching yoga, and, it kind of snowballed. And I hit a ceiling when I was working at that studio. The owner and I just started to butt heads. So I was like, well, I'm going to do this on my own. Went and opened my own business, ran that for 6.5 years, and it was successful. It supported my family and did what I needed to do. But I got bored, as I do every 5 or 6 years of my work, and so I don't remember how I got into the online space, but I bought Dan Henry's Facebook ads course. And then I got a client and started running ads for them, and got another client, and I had a handful of clients. Then I joined Traffic and Funnels to grow that business, the Facebook ads agency. Ended up becoming a coach on the team because like I am just inherently a coach. And then it kind of snowballed from there. And we can talk more, but I'll stop just blazing at you with my past here.
I love Boston, man. We went to Boston a few years ago and went and watched the Celts. But my favorite experience in Boston was going to see the hockey.
Yep.
We went and watched the Bruins. We watched Boston lose to Orlando, who were like cellar dwellers, and that wasn't fun. And then we went to the hockey, and I was like, "This is my sport." And the Bruins won that year, so they were on fire.
Nice. Yeah. Hockey's an awesome sport.
So I'd love to unpack the career path of the client success manager. This is something you help people with. You coach client success managers. You hire client success managers. So you place them in businesses. And this is not something that a lot of our audience have heard about before, which is another pathway if they're looking to enter the high ticket space. It can be the first. It's like it can be the first role that someone lands, or it can be a progression from salesperson to client success manager. Talk me through that. Talk us through your experience as a client success manager, moving to customer success director, and just in general, the career path of the client success manager or CSM.
Yeah, well, mine was particularly painful because I came into that coaching position, CSM role, without much knowledge of marketing and sales. I was really great at relationships and guiding people and coaching them, but my marketing and sales skills were really lacking. But with that said, I was very fortunate because Taylor, who was one of the owners of Traffic and Funnels, and Alex, who was the client success director, poured into me. was like every day was like marketing and sales boot camp, right? And so after, really 6 months of intense feedback and coaching and training, I had enough of a foundation to have confidence in those areas. If I were to recommend to someone else, I would actually become a salesperson first, right? And I would go through a program like yours. Now it's like, oh, okay, well, why is he saying that? Just because he's talking to Kris? No. But even as a company now who recruits and places CSMs, we're looking for people with sales experience. Now, why is that? Well, one, they tend to really understand human psychology and buying behaviors and those kinds of things. And that's super useful to just guiding people in any kind of program, right? So you have those foundational sales skills. And then what we often find is that people who have been in a sales role for a while, not all of them, but a lot of them are craving like a longer term engagement with the people that they're interacting with, right? So the CSM role becomes really perfect in that sense, because they have the sales skills, but then they also get to nurture these relationships with clients, if that makes sense.
What were some of the things? I know it was a challenge for you, and I agree that sales skills are so important for CSMs because you have to reframe. You're always selling as well. So there's back-end selling, there's stop and prevent refunds, there's lots of crucial conversations you've got to have with clients. You've got to help them become the best version of themselves. You've got to help them succeed and win. Coach, which are all skills you need to have at a high level as a salesperson. But what are some of the day-to-day tasks of a CSM? And also, curiously, I think people would be interested to know what's the earning potential of a CSM?
Yeah, sure. So it's similar to sales in some ways, right? So most CSMs are going to have client calls, right? So every day you're probably going to have a handful of calls. You're going to need to audit your active roster of clients, probably once a week, just to be sure, like, all right, are they doing the work? Are they bought in? Are they hitting their milestones? And so ideally the company that you work for has some kind of tracking in place where, again, might be daily, might be 15 minutes, might be 30 minutes. You're updating your client roster so that you and your client success director and whoever else is involved has data on, where are clients getting stuck? What are the biggest friction points? What do we need to shift in our client experience or our systems or whatever? So, in short, it's a combination of client calls, tracking, and then depending on how experienced you are, there might be some feedback that you're giving to the client success director to help evolve the client experience. So that's that piece. And then you asked about compensation. There's a range, right? So typically what we see is some kind of base salary for a CSM. In the US, it's typically 5 to 7K a month. That's full time. And then bonus structures that ideally bring you to 100K if you're doing well in your role. So that might not be your first year, but you definitely want to have a compensation that will give you a shot at 6 figures. That's completely reasonable if you're working for a company with, a validated offer and they're growing, et cetera, et cetera.
We often speak about the sort of appointment setter role and moving to closer. And so that salary range, I feel like it's sort of a little bit higher than the average appointment setter, probably less than like a high performing closer. But on a day-to-day level, you're dealing with less stress. You don't have to gear up every month and start from zero. So for salespeople, I was a client success director with Cole, who you work with, who closed me getting into traffic and funnels when you and I worked together. And so I was working at that role in that role, and there was stresses of its own. For me, it was getting up at 3:30 in the morning and having to jump on a team meeting and try to be awake and try to keep up with the banter of everyone on the team. They had really good banter, and I was just still opening my eyes. And but you know, it was the day-to-day communications with clients. It was juggling lots and lots of accounts, but it was a lot less stressful than dealing with top of funnel, new leads, new clients, and also the sales process was a lot easier. Sort of at the end of the tenure of the client, having that conversation to upgrade, it was all based upon relationship.
Yeah, and that's another, you know, we talked about why do salespeople make great CSMs, because when there is a secondary offer, you know, it's easy for you to sell because like you have all that selling experience, right? And we know that selling starts from day one of you working with that client too. This isn't it's not a one-time event, especially when you're selling secondary or back-end offers. But yeah, that certainly helps when you're a CSM.
A lot of our students and people who are listening to this podcast, they're looking to succeed in remote sales, but also the high ticket space in general. A big part of that, it's not just about being a skilled salesperson or a skilled operator. You also need to partner with the right company, partner with a company that you can authentically sell and has great opportunity. I'd love you to speak. You've now worked with how many clients? Hundreds?
Yeah, it's close to 140 at this point.
Yeah. And these are all businesses that are operating the high ticket space. And I'm sure you've seen good, bad, ugly. What should a salesperson look for when assessing whether or not they should work with a company or whether they should pass and keep looking?
Yeah. So I personally would want to know, how many clients have gone through this offer that I'm going to be selling, if it's quote unquote brand new, is it an iteration of a previously proven offer? If not, I would proceed with caution. If they haven't taken at least 100 people through an offer, I'm not sure I would close for that or even be a CSM for that company, right? The second thing I want to know is how do you define client success and what is your success rate? And a lot of companies they'll either make up a number or they won't even know. And so if they say, oh, we have a 80% success rate, my follow-up question would be, how do you track that? Because a lot of companies, at least years ago, it's getting better now, but years ago it'll be like, oh, you got to see all the wins and the testimonials and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, you could have a lot of that, but if you're enrolling 80 clients a month and only 20 of them are crushing it, then you might still be getting 20 testimonials a month. That's going to look like a lot, right? But if you look at the context of that, it's like, well, 20 out of 80, that means you have a 25% success rate. That kind of sucks. Do I want to be selling that offer? I don't know. So those are a few things I would be kind of asking questions around, because otherwise you're going to put yourself in an offer where you're probably going to leave in 3 to 6 months.
Which is pretty common, I'd have to say. And especially at the start of someone's career, what we find is that it can take time to settle and find your perfect fit. And you've got to crack a few eggs to make the omelet.
Yeah. And that's okay too. For those of you who are listening to this and, either you're in training or you're just about to kind of graduate from training, you're going to be less picky because you want to get reps and you want to build your track record. But again, as you kind of get some seniority, you want to be pickier about the companies that you're closing for because, otherwise it's just going to be you're going to start dreading your work, and that's no fun.
What niches are you seeing at the moment that are interesting or that you feel are starting to pull ahead, if any, within the high ticket space?
Yeah, there's always a lot of business opportunity type of offers, right? I think that's probably the biggest aspect of our space, which is great because again, and look,
can you give some examples?
Yeah. So, even traffic and funnels really was biz op because I had a Facebook ads agency. I was probably doing $3,000 a month or $4,000 a month when I started with them. And the program was $10K, it was $10,000. And it's like, yeah, everyone wants to get an ROI, but if you look at the ROI that I've gotten from just making that decision, not even just the return I got in the program. Like I started to hit 10K months in month 2 of the program. But my whole business now is built out of that experience at Traffic and Funnels, right? And I think you could say the same thing, like just the connections you make when you step into a program like that is far, the value is far beyond what you invest. Now, you have to have that certain kind of mindset, right? If you're going into a program and you're like, oh, I'm investing 5K or 10K, and I've got to get this cash ROI in 60 days, that's a dangerous mindset, right? So I know that wasn't your exact question, but I just wanted to
I love that,
say
though.
that because
I love going into that because I feel it's I feel there's such benefit to education, any education when you dive into a program to better yourself and you've invested money behind it, which means something. It makes you really pay attention. When you pay attention. And I do feel that regardless of the result within that short period of time that you're in that container, the benefits stay with most clients for life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in terms of, you were asking for some examples, man, there's so many. There's, I've seen start a cleaning business, Amazon FBA, become a closer. I've even seen become a CSM, which I will caution this. One thing that we find is that unless you're coming from being a high ticket closer to a CSM, if you have not had any experience in high ticket, it's very hard to get a CSM role off the bat. Okay. I was kind of lucky in that I went through the program and kind of showed them as I was going through. I was supporting other clients just out of the goodness of my heart. So I had some proof in that sense, but our clients who are looking for CSMs and want us to recruit, they either want people with CSM experience, they want former business owners, they want former salespeople. So I'm just saying that because if you do see an opportunity of like, hey, become a CSM, and you don't have some of that other experience, it can be really tough to nail a job. So that said, I said cleaning businesses, Amazon FBA, I'm trying to think of some of the other, start an agency is another popular one.
A lot of e-com.
E-com. Yep. There's many.
And you now have been in the high ticket space for a long time. You'd be classified as a certified veteran of the high ticket space, which which is funny. Maybe me too. What changes have you seen? And where do you see the industry going? And what are you excited about? But also, what are you cautious about?
Yeah. So I think we're still a pretty fragile industry. I think it's going to. I don't think it's going away. I'll say that. But I think what we're going to see is the mature businesses are the ones that are going to last, and we're going to see less and less new high ticket businesses because across all niches, buyers are becoming like tighter with their wallets. And it's not, I think it's because of economics. The world economic situation is much different than, even when COVID hit. But I also think that so many people have been like, quote unquote, burned by high ticket programs that they're much more skeptical now. So you've got to have a great brand reputation or else you're just going to struggle. And that's why I'm saying, the mature businesses that are paying attention to how they're treating their clients are the ones that are going to make it. So I think there's a maturing that's happening. I don't think we're going away, but I also think that kind of tightening up is going to continue to happen, and hopefully we'll continue to get more savvy business owners that can stand the test of time.
What opportunities come from that, do you think, not only for people who are working in the space, but for consumers?
That's a really good question. I think when I look at like my experience in high ticket, your experience, so many people that I know, I think it's got such an ability to stretch us in a good way. Like I think when we did our practice round of this last week, I'm just kidding, guys. Kristen hit record.
We won't tell the audience what happened last week.
Yeah,
be incriminating.
Yeah. But when I hit 10K in my Facebook ads agency, I thought that was like end all be all. I was like, 10K, man, we're set. Here I go. I can retire, which is not true. But up until that point, at 10K was like, how could I ever make 10K? Right. And then I did it and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So to me, to be able to expose more people, again, it's not just the money, but it's like to expose them to who they can become by just being around other people that think differently than them, that have done great things. I think that's the real gift of the high ticket space.
What I love about the high ticket space, it is that it's most of what we're selling a high version of a person or a business. We're helping them up level, we're helping them improve, whether that's through an education product, an information product, an agency service, whatever the go-to-market mechanism is for the business. You're helping people improve and get better. And I agree with you that the businesses now, they've got to have a much higher level of integrity. We've seen businesses who have come to our other business, which is a recruiting company, to want to recruit salespeople, and we vet them. And if we're looking at a company that hasn't been in the game very long, if they've got low integrity, low reviews, low success, we won't recommend them. We won't take them on as a client. And it's very hard for those companies to come online and to be successful. And I use my experience as well with Remote Sales Institute. We're now a year and a little bit sort of officially in business, although have been training this method for many years prior to this. It's been very, I'd say, concentrated growth. It's not like it's just come and exploded. We've just got, I think the market these days, they're so much more aware, and they're a lot more cautious. And that's why, we do this podcast. We focus on our client success. We're a client of yours to try to improve even take what already is working to new levels of client experience, because I don't see a way that you can get away without having that in this day and age, in this marketplace. Yeah. So I see the opportunity for businesses who are prepared to invest in that and prepared to actually work hard to create an unbelievable client experience, to create excellent results. I really think there's huge opportunity for businesses who are serious about what they do and not just about making money and building out their acquisition.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, there's so many companies that we have not worked with that really need the help, and so it's like that keeps us in the game, because we just know the space is still so far behind when it comes to client experience. It's like, all right, we have to keep doing this, and we know the space will catch up. We just, we got to stay in the game. So it's much better than it was, 6-7 years ago. But there's still so much growth when it comes to, how businesses are taking care of clients.
What are the goals for you over the next few years? What are the goals for Ethical Scaling and yourself personally?
Yeah, I think for the business, it's really just holding steady on the consulting side, which means, we just keep our steady roster of clients. We've got a small team, but a great team. Really where we're stepping into next is to get more exposure to the software that we have. The reason being is that the tracking and client tracking in the space is really deficient. And so we believe, we're biased, of course, but we believe that this tool is one of the fundamentals that will help propel businesses to take better care of their clients. Now, it's not the only thing, but again, it's software oftentimes it's a little shinier and sexier, right? So it's easier for a business owner most of the time to say, okay, I'm going to invest in this software so my team can have a handle on clients. Then that opens the door to, giving them some guidance on recruiting or, their actual client journey and things like that. So we're really leaning into the software in hopes that it will just expose people to more of the power of client success.
That's exciting. I'm excited to look at it. I think that's on our roadmap of work together is looking at this tool and just looking at tracking and how we can improve the tracking of our student success in Remote Sales Institute. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, awesome.
Any final words? Anything you want to leave the listeners with? Any inspiration? Anything to get them motivated about this industry? Tips, advice?
Yeah, I think it's this simple, and this comes from a McKinsey study years ago. But if you retain 5% more of your clients, right? Just keep 5% more for longer. You can improve your profit margin by up to 100%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really and don't just take my word for it. If you Google McKinsey client retention study, something like that, you'll see the stats. It's increase your retention by 5%, improve profits from 25 to 100%. Right now, there's more detail in the study itself, but even just to entertain that is mind blowing. It's my God, in order to get 100% more profit just from front end acquisition, what would I have to do? It would not be improved by 5%. I'll tell you that. So I'll leave it with that little nugget. Just sit with that, find the study. And I'll give them a second. Become a master at client expectations, setting and managing. Set the right expectation. Check in along the way with your clients to make sure their expectations haven't changed without you knowing it. If you master that, you'll be in this game for a long, long time.
Love those tips. And if anyone is looking to go deeper on that, they can grab your book, The Customer Success Manifesto. And where can people find you, Ben?
Yeah, so if you guys just go to ethicalscaling.com, that's the easiest place to go. You can find the book, the podcast, all the things there.
And we've loved working with you, and we're excited for the future journey. Shout out to Adam, shout out to Jay. Awesome team, awesome experience from our end, and we're building something truly robust for our students, and to make sure that they win and they succeed. And man, I'm just loving the journey. How we met in 2017, even though you were dealing with thousands of clients, you love the Aussies. I felt like you always made you had a special place for the Aussies.
It's true, man. I had Aussie bias, especially when I was at Traffic and Funnels. It's do I need to do a nighttime call? I'm gonna do it. So yeah, it was always a special place for you guys.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for hopping on. And if you got value from today's episode, team, thanks for listening. But do us a favor, hit the subscribe and also rate the show. And if you loved it, share it with someone who you feel might need it, a business owner or someone who's looking to break into remote sales or the high ticket space. This stuff changes lives. It's an amazing industry. And we love it. So thanks again, Ben. And we'll see you all next time.